Good afternoon, dear students. Can you hear me? I hope that you all can hear properly. So anyway, I think there are around 16 people. So let others to join later. So okay. Then I think the last week I have uploaded the lecture materials, lecture 2, the presentation and also the note I have uploaded to the LMS. I suppose you have download those things, and at the end of this series I will discuss it again, because I think the last one is very important for your question paper as well. Not only for that, it's about commercialization, that you all can get good ideas by after that lecture 2. So therefore I will do it later, and anyway I have uploaded all the materials to the LMS. You all can download it. So today we are going to discuss about some processing technologies, and lecture number 2 is about equipments. So, but you have to speak today because this is a discussion. You all have some experience regarding these things. If you are not going to, if you are not going to come to the discussion, so it will be a very boring session like Bana. So I am not ready to do this type of lectures. So I hope the time is not good. It's 1 p.m. So therefore, please join with me and give me your ideas. Then I can improve and I can add some examples to the next lecture as well. And in the previous batches, there were very interesting discussions with students, but unfortunately, we don't have physical lecture facility now. But anyway, you can comment on these. So if you have some food items in your area, if you have some related techniques, so you better propose these things. Then we can discuss these things and we can analyze these things and share the knowledge with other people. That should happen. So anyway, here you can see some pictures about foods. The first picture is very familiar one. Uh, it's about salt and lime. In Sinhala, we call it as Lunadehi. The second one is also a very popular thing among Sri Lankans. So what we call it as second one. You don't have idea, ne? Okay. Today we are going to discuss these techniques, drying and dehydration. So there will be two techniques we are going to discuss, sun drying and solar drying and smoke drying. So when we consider about our ancestors, they have used these techniques to dry their food items, and they didn't have some refrigerators at that time, so they used to apply drying and dehydration and also smoking to preserve their food products. And fermentation, it is very again important one. We are also we are being used the fermented food products, and it's actually a secret. The fermented food products, they have very good demand when it comes to alcoholic beverages. We have very big demand. You could see some in even in some quarantine periods. I think you have the experience about the queues at the bars and restaurants to buy their alcoholic beverages. But unfortunately, in our country, we don't have a good system. But other countries, they have generalized these things. But our country, we think it's as a we have such tradition, so we do not allow for consumption of liquid alcoholic beverages. So but I can't understand what happened to our country. But fermentation is a very um, famous and good and economical technique. And some non-alcoholic foods are available, such as yogurts, cheese, like food products, and some confectionery products like bread also comes under fermented products. So, and some sauerkraut like food products, fermented products are available. So those food products also very popular uh, among all age categories. So it is very important. And pickling, uh, nowadays we have very big demand for pickling food items, pickles. Uh, in Sinhala we call it as acharu. So everywhere you can see pickles. If it is a carnival or close to the close to some university and government institutes, also we can see some pickling, some sellers, pickled food product sellers. So it's very famous, and especially girls, they like to eat pickles, and we have very big. So varieties are there, but uh, it's also under indigenous technique. And salting, very famous one. We consume salted food products in our day-to-day life, and that is also belongs to indigenous techniques. And immersed in concentrated liquids. It's also available, but as an example, garlic in bee honey. It's very common immersed food product, uh, because it's very popular, because we wish that it can reduce the fat in our body, deposited fat. So that's why the garlic in bee honey, the people they are going to use consume such products. We call it as immersed food products. And burying means uh, it is in the third picture. Here you can see buried jack seeds, Valicosata in Sinhala, bury. So, and sometimes we put lime under uh, sand. Some lime also we used as a buried food product. So before moving to the detailed description, I just wanted to ask something about food preservation. So why do we need food preservation? Is it useful? Is it important for us? Your answers? Why do we need food preservation? What is food preservation? Or like, give me one example, simple example or description. Oshani? Oshadi? Do we need food preservation, or why do we need it? Oshadi?
To extend shelf life.
Right, thanks. The ultimate objective is to extend the shelf life. Iska? Any question? Any answers? Do you have any answer?
We add some ingredients such as salt or honey to we extend commodities shelf life.
Right. The ultimate objective is to change or extend its shelf life. That's correct. Thank you very much for your answers. And what are the other things? But after preservation, it's a type of value addition. No, the value addition, it's a type of very commonly used technique for value addition. So it's actually we use it for preservation, but as a result of that, the flavor also increase and color may also change. So, very basic example, about fish. Every day we have fish, raw fish. as we are an island, so we have so many fish varieties in our country, and we have very good chain for fish, but it's a big demand for dried fish, and we are importing so many tons of dried fish per month and per year. So it's very big amount. It will directly affect for our national economy as well. So what is this? Why we can see such deviation? So we have fish, the nutrition value of raw fish, but we are buying some dried fish also. So the difference means the taste and color and the texture also different when it comes to tuna, fresh tuna. You can see, you can remember the taste, and when it comes to dried tuna, the taste is totally different. Texture is all totally different. So those days the people used to do these preservation methods with a view to extend their shelf life, and as a result of that, we can get different types of food products using similar raw materials. Okay, the definition you can see here. Yeah, as you told me, according to your answers, the ultimate objective is to extend the shelf life and uh, stop, control, or greatly slow down spoilage. By using these things, we can extend its shelf life and minimize the possibility of foodborne illnesses. So, what is the meaning of foodborne illnesses? Foodborne. So, it is according to the name. Also, you can see the diseases based on foods, right? And while maintaining the optimum nutrition value, texture, and flavor. So we can preserve foods by burning also, right? And we can preserve foods by dehydration and drying also. But the optimum nutritional value, texture and flavor is very important, and also color. So when we are doing some preservation methods, we all have to consider, rethink on its nutrition value and sensorial quality. Right? I think it's clear. And drying and dehydration techniques. I'm not going to talk about all the theories about drying and dehydration. And I know that Dr. Lasanti will do these things, post-task techniques. So I'm not going to explain, but what I wanted to tell you here is the techniques, right? The techniques about the techniques which they have used, our ancestors and the past people, what they have used, and how can we use those techniques to develop new machines and equipments. That's my objective. So I'm not going to explain all the theories and diagrams. So if you are interested, you can just read the book or download some PDF. It's available, readily available in the internet also. So when it comes to drying and dehydration, as a result of drying and dehydration, the removal of solvent from a food, right? So by removing the solvent, maybe water and or semi-solid or liquid food, and finally you can get a dried food, right? And drying is the far more, basically the drying is the final step of food processing. Just before packaging, we are going to dry the food. And a mass transfer process. Mass transfer means by providing temperature or heat, remove water. As a result of that, water will remove, and water means there is a density and weight and mass. So mass will remove, and there is a mass different, right? Weight different is there. So we call it as a mass transfer process, and the final product will be a solid material. and we can get different types of food products after drying and dehydration. So you can see how it happens in these pictures. Uh, normally we use heat energy, or we call it as thermal energy, to remove water. And we need low production cost. Cost is reasonable, and product quality also good. And we can remove and we can reduce the microbiological spoilage, chemical reactions as a result of drying and dehydration. And the rehydration is very important again. It's a similar term. It's a very, very important term. Rehydration. Rehydration means after dehydration, you know, the moisture is not there, very low amount of moisture. But when the food is exposed to moisture, then it will absorb moisture again. You can see this example when you expose your milk powder bag for a while. Or very good example. Just think about a cream cracker, right? It's a crispy biscuit, hard dough, soft dough biscuit type of biscuit. Then what happened when we expose it for about a few hours? Then you can see the texture will change as a result of moisture absorption, right? The moisture, the available moisture is very low, so it's a hygroscopic food, so it will absorb moisture and change its texture, right? Also, drying process improve product stability. Stability means stable product. The shelf life is very high. Decrease transport or shipping cost. If not, you know, in Sri Lanka, we are paying a much for vegetable transportation. Around more than 80% of water is there in vegetables. So we just transport some water with vegetables. Actual transport cost is around quarter. We transport vegetable, it means we transport around 80% of water plus 20% of vegetable, right? Now, around 80% of what is there. And minimize packaging requirements, right? As an example, we can export mango as raw mango and dehydrated mango. So you need to have some packaging materials to pack raw mango. You can imagine the volume of that packaging and how much you need for the packaging. Also, dried one, we can reduce the weight and volume, so packaging cost is also reduced, right? Those are the importance. And there are several types of water in food. Free water, bound water, and halfly bound water. You can see the free water and bound water. According to the term free, you know, free, it's a free time means it's free, right? You can see the free water here as droplets, and bound water means chemically bound with other substances. So if it is a free water, it will easily evaporate after applying some heat. When it comes to bound water, it's very difficult to remove because there are some bonds. And the freezing point also -20, but you know the freezing point of water is it's around somewhat around 0 degrees of Celsius, and when we turn its temperature below 0, so we can freeze it. But in bound water, you know, you can see the freezing temperature is lower than -20, and we have to provide much heat to remove this water. It is very difficult to remove, and after removing this water, what happened to the texture, it will totally change. So therefore, we are not going to remove bound water in foods for day-to-day and any food operations. right? Then again, two words are available: non-hygroscopic and hygroscopic. I have already told what is the meaning of hygroscopic. Hygroscopic means they are uh, uh, contains bound water and the vapor pressure of the material is less than free water. So such foods will absorb moisture quickly. And non-hygroscopic means does not contain bound water, whether the particle pressure of the water is material is equal to the vapor pressure, right? pressure so the pressure is same. So therefore, by our experience, we know it will not absorb moisture, or the absorption rate is very low. But in hygroscopic foods, the pressure is lower than free water, so pressure difference is there. So the hygroscopic food means those such foods will absorb moisture quickly. So if it is, as an example, cream cracker, it's a hygroscopic one. Non-hygroscopic means maybe a watermelon, or maybe a mango. So it will not absorb water. But when we reduce the water, if it is a dehydrated mango, then it will absorb water. Then we consider it as a hygroscopic foods. But raw mango, it's not hygroscopic. We call it as non-hygroscopic. So that's the difference in between these two terms. Then you can see how the classification of hygroscopic foods and non-hygroscopic foods. You need not to remember these things, just to read the differences. Then we are going to discuss with some drying techniques. You know, two types of techniques are available. So in solar drying is one of the very mostly common techniques. Still, we are being used in our domestic applications for paper, for some coconuts, for some fruits as well. We use solar drying techniques, but there are two techniques: direct solar drying and indirect solar drying, and also there are two types of moisture transfer technique: migration of moisture from the mass inside to the surface, and surface to the air, right? එතන මුලින්ම මොකද්ද වෙන්නේ? ඒක ඇතුලේ තියෙන moisture ටික එනවා surface එකට, surface එකෙන් ඊට පස්සේ තමයි වාෂ්ප වෙන්නේ. At the beginning you can see when it comes to drying, and as an example we are going to dry a piece of mango, right? You just peel out mango and just cut it, and we have mango pieces. So we expose those mango pieces to sunlight. Then what happened? The water droplets, water molecules available inside the mango piece will migrate to the surface, right? That's the first step. The second one, those molecules, water molecules, will evaporate from the surface, right? It's very important to remember how it happens. Then dehydration, it's a type of drying. Dehydration is also a type of drying, but in dehydration, we will control the temperature. So as a result of that, the cost is little higher than drying, but we can preserve its nutrition and sensorial qualities. If dry karahama, you can feel the different texture, but sometimes it's not palatable. The taste is not good. You have that experience. Sometimes in your home, you are going to dry foods by exposing to the sunlight, directly exposing. Then you can feel the flavor. We call it as aurasa. In Sinhala, we call it as aurasa, the solar flavor or sun flavor. I don't know which term for that one. It's a different taste. But in dehydration, it's a type of controlled drying, we control the temperature and the environmental conditions. So as a result of that, in dehydration, we can get a unique food products with good qualities. Nutrition loss is very low, and the sensory qualities are also good, not bad as in solar drying. So directly exposing. So therefore, there are different drying techniques. In here, you can see the drying curve. You can see the drying curve. There are three major steps, so I'm not going to explain these things in detail. So you can see there are two diagrams. In the first diagram, x-axis drying time and the y-axis drying rate. So initially, what happened when we started the drying process? The drying rate is little higher. So okay. Initially, there is a little higher and accelerated drying, and then constant stage is there. Then it will decrease. Right? මුලින්ම මොකද වෙන්නේ අපි දෙයක් try කරන්න පටන් ගත්තාම මුලින්ම drying rate is comparatively higher, then constant stage and falling stage. So therefore there are three stages. We call it as early stage, constant stage and falling period. Right? What is the meaning of falling? When we expose that particular food inside the drying chamber, with the time you can see the water removal rate will be decreased. Right? අපි වැඩ කරන්න ගියාවත් එහෙම දැන් campus එනකන් in the first year you work well. For A levels you work very hard to enter to the university. Then what happened? The first year you work hard. Then the second year the capacity will be decreased. Third year and fourth year. Then after pass out, after pass out from the university, so the capacity is very low, right? As a result of that, you can see in some government offices, you can see our graduates, they are sleeping and they are following and they are viewing their Facebook profiles and reading newspapers from 8 to 5 and go back to home. So that's what happened, right? Likewise, it is also commonly happening in the drying also. There are three stages. With the time, drying rate will decrease. Initially increase, then constant stage, then decrease. Right? And when we consider drying rate and water content, the different one, initially the water content is high than the final stage. Right? Initially, and drying rate is also high. And with the time, you can see the water content also decrease and drying rate also decrease. As I explained here, with the time, drying rate will decrease. So if drying rate is decrease, it means the water content also low, right? But there are two graphs. Y-axis is same, but x-axis is totally different. So you can see, you can easily understand there are three stages. Initially, you know, the moisture content is high and drying rate also high. With the time, the drying rate will decrease. Also, the moisture level will also be decreased, right? I hope that you have this experience, but unfortunately you missed the field visit to the Ambana. Anyway, I will show you some videos and photographs. These photos are available in the Google, but I will show my own photographs later and some videos, right? Sun drying and solar drying. Do you know the difference between these two terms? Are those terms are similar or different? What are the differences between sun drying and solar drying? But for both processes, we use thermal energy obtained by solar in solar radiations. In solar energy, it's very common, and we know we can feel its effect when we expose to sunlight. We can feel its effect. So therefore, it's freely available. We can get the energy available in solar energy, solar radiation. Wind also facilitates sun drying process by removing moisture. It's natural circulation. If we have only solar energy, sunlight, so it will take much time to time for the drying process. But basically, normally we have a wind. We have the wind. So as a result of that airflow, it will naturally absorb water into the air and remove the water from the food. So both solar energy and wind facilitate for natural and solar drying. In sun drying, when it comes to sun drying, we expose foods to the solar radiations. As you can see here, we directly expose our foods to the sunlight, or we call it as open air drying, right? And solar drying, we not basically we are not we use heated air, but not exposed to the direct sunlight, right? There are two terms called as sun drying and solar drying. In sun drying, you can see some examples here. Paddy drying. So we expose foods to the sunlight, but in solar drying, we never expose foods directly to the sunlight, but we use the solar energy to enhance the temperature of air inside the cabin. I will show you some example. Hence, surface area and thickness of the food play a vital role in this process. Outdoor sun air heating suits for fruits. Their high sugar and acid content makes the direct sunlight safe. Since the vegetables have low sugar content, so it will tend to spoil it. So basically, we use sun drying for fruits, but not for vegetables, because fruits contain natural sugar and acid. So as a result of that, the texture will also good, and microbes will be damaged. But when it comes to vegetables, you know, in vegetables, the sugar and acid content is very low, so therefore there is a risk for spoilage. So if you are going to introduce and start some industry as a solar dried food products or handmade food products by using solar drying, eco-friendly technique, so you need to remember that the sugar content and acid content is very important in sun and solar drying. And different types of solar dryers are available. We call it as solar dryers because in this type of dryers we use heated air, not direct sunlight. So there are some active dryers and passive dryers. So active dryers means we use forced circulation by using fans and exhaust fans. We use some forced techniques for the circulation. But in passive dryers, natural circulation is there. That's the difference. So direct type of active dryers and mixed mode are available. So you can see the examples: box type dryers, cabinet dryers, and tunnel dryers. So for passive dryers, we always use tunnel dryers and cabinet dryers. It is actually a type of indirect one. So two types of solar dryers are available: active and passive, and there may be direct, mixed, and indirect active dryers, and also direct, mixed, and indirect type of passive dryers. So box type of dryers are unique for active dryers, right? You can understand why is that, the reason also later. So if it is a passive dryer, we know basically use natural circulation. So අපි එළියෙන් fans දාලා ගන්නේ නැහැ. So therefore the shape is very important, tunnel shape, right? If it is a box type one, then we have to adhere to the conditions available. But for the normal conditions, you know what happened? The heated air, the density will decrease, right? Density will decrease after heating, so the air is moving from bottom to top, right? එතන වාතය ගමන් කරන රත් වුණාම ඝනත්වය අඩු වෙලා උඩට යන්නේ. එතන නිතරම එන්නේ උඩට. So therefore we have to have a tunnel type dryer or a cabinet dryer, but we can't use box type dryers for natural circulation. You will be able to understand these things later with some examples. And you can see advantages and disadvantages. As I told you earlier, solar energy is freely available, so the cost is very low, and it's readily available everywhere. It's available, and sometimes we have to do some pre-treatments such as blanching before solar drying, and it's freely available for all of us, so we all can initiate and do our business by using solar energy. But there are some disadvantages too, because we can't control the temperature, right? Sun will determine that the temperature, and some clouds, right? So when we expose our food items directly to the sunlight, then some contaminations will be there. Some bird droppings, dogs will come, right? And some insect will attack, and some moisture will mix with those grains, those food items at the end of the day, and some dust particles will be mixed. So such disadvantages are also there. And basically, it is a cost-wise very good technique, right? And it is a batch type of drying techniques. We can't continuously do that part, solar drying. So you can see from Anuradhapura and Polonnaruwa some days from the roadside, we can see a very beautiful scene. They dry their paddy at the roads. So it's a batch type one. We have to dry first batch and finish it, and then we have to do the second batch. So therefore it's a batch wise process, and depend on the time and geographical area. In Sri Lanka, we had very bad time in last 2 weeks. Every day there was rain, but not sunlight, not adequate sunlight is there, right? Sunlight is there. So it's a dependent factor. In solar drying, it's one of the oldest techniques, found in 8000 BC, and the temperature you can see, it is 40 to 70. Basically, in solar drying, we use 40 to 70 degrees of Celsius. For some special cases, we can increase it up to 80%. So sometimes the 40 to 50, around 50 degrees also very good for food items. When we increase it up to 70 or 80, the quality will change, right? And nutritional profile will also change. So the temperature range is very good, but we have to maintain the temperature at their unique relevant temperature. So therefore, in the solar drying, you can see you can't use solar dryers for 100 degrees of Celsius. If we need such temperature, so then we can't use solar drying technique, right? Generally, we use 60 degrees of Celsius. here you can see the tunnel type solar dryer. As I mentioned you in this slide. Here you can see a tunnel type passive one. Here passive dehydrate is there, so you can see the air in area, and the rough surface is there, and air will circulate based on its density. After increase the temperature of air, its density will decrease. So as a result of that, this natural flow is there as mentioned here, right? And air collector, how to design this one? Basically, we use black surfaces. For what? Black surface, black color will absorb energy and thermal energy, and white color will not accept that one, right? So black color තිබ්බොත් තමයි මේ energy එක සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම trap කරගන්න පුළුවන්. And also if it is a smooth area, smooth surface, then it's difficult to get that energy efficiently. Therefore we use this type of surfaces, not smooth surfaces, right? Okay, then here you can see a basic solar dryer. It's a passive one. We don't need fans or electricity. And you can see the solar air collector එක කළු පාට rough surface එකක් තියෙන්න ඕනේ to absorb more energy. If it is a white color smooth surface one, then the effectiveness is very low. So therefore we are using this type of black colored one with rough surfaces, and we can use some what do you call, some granite and some mineral materials to prevent the temperature loss. ඔගොල්ලෝ දන්නවා අපි සමහරලාට කළු ගල් දානවා, සමහරලාට ටකරන් වගේ දේවල් දානවා to absorb and trap the energy for a long time. So you have to understand, but the surface color is black and surface is not smooth, it's a rough surface to trap the energy. Then these are the food trays with mesh. What is the objective of having mesh? Then you can stack foods here. Then this the air circulation is there as I mentioned here, right? This is the basic setting of solar dryer. And here you can see two types of dryers. For this one, cold air is coming as we discussed earlier, and there is a glass surface to to prevent from any contamination, bird droppings and dust. Everything has been avoided by this glass. And we kept food inside this container, and sunlight is there. Then the hot air will remove from this, right? But this is a different type of one. Here you can see the cabin is different, right? Separate part. Then we use only hot air. We use this device to get only hot air. Then it will pass out through these food products, and as a result of that, moisture will remove and the temperature will be increased, right? I think it's clear. Here you can see a modern one. And advantages and disadvantages of solar drying. You know the advantages. It's the cost is very low, right? And anybody can use this technique, right? And drying rate is also high. Drying can be controlled, right? And the changes, sensorial quality and food quality will retain, nutritional quality also there, because the temperature is around maximum 60 degrees, but we maintain it at 40 to 60. Okay, and some disadvantages as we discussed, geographical issue is there, and the initial capital cost is also comparatively high, right? And the batch-wise process, there are some disadvantages. Okay, I think it's clear, very general things. So you can read and understand these things. This is very important. So you have to give your answers for this slide. Then after listen to this, you just listening, you didn't answer some, except 3 students. So after listening to this lecture, how do you feel? So there are techniques, those are available, so, and you are technologist, so you can do some innovations, right? You can develop some modern solar dryers. You can develop modern spray dryers, right? What are the spray dryers you can see? And solar powered fruit or vegetable cutters, solar steam generators, solar bean roasters, solar fryers. Likewise, you can develop these things. These are some my examples. You can imagine we have this process. We have this process. So, how to convert this all techniques into modern technologies? So here you can see some, you know, that disadvantages, right? Then contamination is there, not there now, but in solar drying, contamination is there. And how to avoid this, how to increase the volume, then you can use such modern device. Then you can implement some sensors with this device to control the temperature, right? Then how to get more energy? You can change the shape of this absorber, and you can change the material. And this is my example, this is my suggestion. Then you can develop this solar dryer as a tracking device. Then with the solar, with the movement of sun, you know, the energy direction will also be changed. So as a remedy for that, as an innovation, you can change this device as a rotatable one. So it will automatically detect the sun's movement and it will change with that movement, right? We call it as solar tracking. In modern solar panels, we have in the solar panels, they have that technology. The solar panels will move with the time, with the sun's direction. But in solar dryers, we can't see that technology, so you can implement this technology and develop a modern solar dryers. We have very big demand for solar dryers, right? As I told you earlier, we have sea and we have fish, but still we are importing some dried fish. So if we introduce this type of solar dryers to the Samurdhi people or the people living in coastal area, so they can develop, they can produce that product. So I have proposed this idea to the Ministry of Fisheries, and they just send a bill to the Parliament, sorry, cabinet paper to the Parliament. Now it's approved, and we are going to introduce this type of new dryers, solar dryers, to the coastal area. Then we will be able to develop our foods in our country, right? That's my idea. I have done it, and the cabinet approval was already taken, and we are moving forward. So I propose you all to apply this neural knowledge in a practical way and do innovations and look at these things, available things carefully as a technologist, and then give your solutions, right? You need not to remember these things and fill these blanks. That's not, should not happen as your technologist. So scientists are there to study these things. So the role of technologist are to do innovations and develop technologies. So at the end of the day, that I propose that if you have any idea, I have these ideas. Now I have some other ideas too. So if you have some different ideas, so please draw a diagram, pencil diagram, and send back to me. Then if you need my support, send back to me, then I will help you, right? As I told you, always please think on your CV after pass out from this university, so you can add more things to your CV without paying money, right? Without paying money. So you have all the resources here. You have academic staff, non-academic staff, in equipments, instruments, everything we have. So, but you have to just think, right? So my advice is, I have only 6 or 7 lectures for this course module. These are very short. You can see, neither. There are only 20 slides, 5 slides. Pictures are there, no theories. So, so at the end of the day, you have this question. So, what type of questions we have? So, we have only 200 slides, maybe 150 slides, right? So, therefore, for all my lectures, I don't have more slides and notes, right? I'll give the key points, then you can think and write. So, therefore, please, please do not read these things. So please try to apply these technologies and ask questions. So you are students, so you can ask questions, right? So I can do any presentations on behalf of you, but you have to just ask something from me and give you idea. So even for the questions you have to answer. So if not, how to be a good technologist? So some engineers are there in the industry, so they will told you something, then you are going to adhere to their comments and do something and be on your seat. So that's what should happen, right? Do your thinking is very important. So last your senior batches, they are very brilliant students. They have very good demand from the market also, from the industries also. They did very good job, but I know the situation because you were in home for a long period, so I always try to open up your minds. So do not get it in a bad way. So I always try to open up your mindset and take you all to the track. Then we can run, right? So I'm going to stop. If you have questions, you may ask now. So if not, I'm going to stop this very short discussion. If you have questions, now you can ask. I will upload all the things to the LMS and to the YouTube. If it is more convenient to download the YouTube one, then you can download from YouTube, or if not, you can download it from LMS. Right? Now it's your time. Seems you don't have questions. Brilliant, excellent. So you get it, all the things I wanted to share with you today. So thank you very much. And please contact me for any ideas or questions regarding these course materials. Thank you very much for your participation and attendance.